My darling children, where do I begin this letter? I think it's fitting that I started writing this on September 30th, which has become known as Orange Shirt Day here in Canada. It represents the stories that are told and lost about the Indigenous youth who were taken from their homes and placed in residential schools away from their families from 1831 to 1996. This idea perplexes me a little bit because perhaps to you, 1996 seems like a lifetime ago, but to me, this feels like yesterday. I remember conversations I had with my friends in 1996. I have memories of being alive and living, and yet, in that time, there were children just like me, taken away from their families, children who have grown now and that I may run into on the streets or pass by in a store. This is important, so listen carefully. I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know what any of that meant until I was an adult long into my 20s and admittingly, even into my 30s. Nobody told me, and so I didn't know better, and now that I know better, it's up to me to do better, and that includes educating you so that your heart is raised with compassion, understanding, and the knowledge to do better as you grow and learn. I acknowledge that I live on the unceded traditional land of the Katzie, Semiahmoo, and Kwantlen people. This land is stolen and not mine to give and take freely. It is not yours to give and take freely. As a white family with colonizer history, it is our moral duty to acknowledge the mistakes that our ancestors made, and not only acknowledge, but apologize, and work together to find a future that moves forward in respect to the land that we live on. This letter is one small step of my promise to teach the next generation, so that they may not have to unlearn as much as I have. As a privileged white settler, my experience within the medical system has only been positive. When I walk into a hospital or doctor's office, I do not worry that my complaints will not be heard or that I will be misdiagnosed based on the color of my skin. I trust that I can ask for medication for any of my own complaints and that I will receive this medication without hesitation or judgment. When you, as my child, are feeling unwell, I do not hesitate to bring you into the emergency room. I'm not concerned that I will be investigated for abuse because of your broken arm. I do not have the expectation that a social worker will meet with us during our time in the hospital for something as simple as a bladder infection. When I chose midwives to catch you at your birth and chose to birth you at home, I wasn't making this decision out of fear of hospitals, but instead out of true choice of place of birth. These are privileges that I have received because of the color of my skin. I remember reading statistics about BIPOC people receiving less optimal health care. My nativity did not allow for me to understand or process how this could be. How could you receive less optimal health care based on something like the color of your skin? Furthermore, how is it my fault as a white person who is not racist? What I failed to understand as I began to step towards the direction of healthcare was that it was not my individual actions per se that meant BIPOC people receive different healthcare than I did. I began to understand that inherently our system is broken and racist, even if there was not one single racist comment or single racist person left in our medical system. The system itself is still inherently racist and undermining to those in BIPOC communities. A few conversations have opened my eyes since then, especially as I take this journey into midwifery school and into the system as a healthcare provider. I'm grateful for friends who have called me out on my systemic racism and asked me the difficult questions that have caused me to wonder and pause. What does eczema look like on a dark Indigenous baby? How does jaundice present on a Black person? One would think that you could easily answer those questions by opening a medical textbook, but the truth remains that it is a very difficult task to find people without white skin in medical textbooks. I was truly astounded to find this information out, and I have made a promise that when discussing conditions through midwifery school, to ask the questions of what does this look like in a person of color or someone with skin that doesn't look like my own. I acknowledge that my journey into this program looks different as a privileged white cis woman, and this privilege will continue with me into my time as a healthcare provider. My education needs to be ongoing, and I need to never stop learning or unlearning as it may be. When clients come to me and put their trust into me, I vow to learn who they are, their culture, their ethnic considerations, and even when I don't understand, I vow to do better. I vow to do better in our system and take a stand against systemic racism with every opportunity I have, even when it's uncomfortable, especially when it's uncomfortable. This journey begins now as a student midwife and continues until long after I am gone. And so, dear children, I hope that you hear these words and know my heart as you watch these images scroll past you of people who don't look like you. May you live for them with every word and every thought. My heart longs that you will continue this work every day of your life, and that you will continue to break down systemic racism, that you will defend those who cannot stand up for themselves in a broken system, and that your hearts will never have to unlearn stereotypes because you do not even know them. And when you undoubtedly fail and use stereotypes in your language or your actions, it is my hope that you acknowledge this, apologize, and do better the next time. I acknowledge this to you because it is for you that I began this journey, that you might carry on the hope of a new generation as we go forward. I say this with a quiver in my throat and tears in my eyes because I do not want these to be empty words. Be brave, be strong, and always be the one who opens your mouth to stand up for those around you. Please hold me accountable and grow with me as we work to make this world a better place. Love, Mom.